There's
Yeah.
always a lesson that enriches us in a way that we couldn't have been enriched otherwise. I think of it as God's curriculum.
Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. This is the podcast where we help you challenge your mindset and discover where you are. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ideal Investor Show, where we're always looking to bring you interesting guests. And we have a fellow residential real estate investor today, who also happens to be the happiness expert. So, Matt O'Neill, welcome to the show.
Oh, what's up, Axel? Man, excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, thank you. I like the energy already. So before we dive into what a happiness expert with real estate investing background does, tell us a little bit, how did Matt get to where he is today?
Well, my entrepreneurial story started when I was young, and my dad abandoned our family when I was 5. My mom was a secretary. I was one of 4 kids, and money was very tight. And I was always wearing hand-me-down clothes, and they always had stains and creases and holes. And I remember the other kids would have like a new pair of shoes, and I just didn't feel like I didn't feel like we were the lucky ones. I felt like we were the unlucky ones, that maybe things weren't so good for us. And so I decided, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a president of a company one day, and I'm going to make all this money, and then I'll be happy. Because when I was young, it wasn't a very happy household. I remember vividly my mom crying in the closet just about how hard it was. It was hard. She's just trying to make it. She's trying to get by. A lot of mental struggles as well, because my dad put us through a lot of hardship. And so I grew up and I became the president of a company that I started and grew it bigger than I ever thought I could. And then realized, wait a minute, the happiness I thought was going to come, it's not here. So now what? I did all these things. I got the money, I got the real estate investing, I got the wife and the children. Why isn't this happiness I thought that was going to come showing up? And then I realized, oh, okay, financial success is one skill set, happiness is a different skill set. And so now what I love to teach people is the happiness skill set.
Okay, and I think that's a quite interesting choice of words, because I'm not so sure how many people would see it as a skill set rather than something that comes to you, like you were initially saying. So can you dive into that a little more?
Yes. So this we're kind of under this spell that if we could just control all the external circumstances in our life, if we could just get everything in our life to go exactly how we wanted it to in that moment, we would be happy. Here's the only issue. We can't. So we can't control it. There's too many, there's 7 billion people in the world. They're not all going to be the way we want them to be. They're not going to act the way we want them to act. Uh, Business isn't going to go the way we want it to go every single day. There's going to be challenges. People are going to get sick. People we love are going to die. Life is just this constant change. Everything's changing all the time, and we don't want it to change. And so if we don't learn how to be happy in the midst of things going the way we don't want them to go, we'll never learn to be happy. So the first way was the way I tried, which is control everything and get it to be exactly perfect. Everyone has to try that. And then we find out that it's impossible. And then we say, okay, how do I be happy in the midst of things I don't want happening? And that's what I teach.
Okay, cool. Now, you said everybody has to kind of try. Are there any kind of things where you would say part of your teaching, and I'm not claiming to know it that well, but helps people to identify when it's time to say, I tried enough?
Sometimes we never learn, and look at the unhappy billionaires. Look at the giant mega stars that take their own life because they tried so hard to make everything work the way they wanted it to work, and they did so well. I think of so many rock stars and TV stars and people who have everything that you would think you would want. and still find out I don't feel good inside. So feeling good inside is a skill set, and it's something that we all can learn. Manifesting the external world is also a skill set. That's also a skill set we can learn. So on your, the Ideal Wealth Growers show, where we're teaching people how to get early retirement, that's a skill set. We can teach it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get super obsessed about what I want. I'm going to picture it vividly every single day. I'm going to do some type of affirmation work or repetition work so that I know that this is coming. And then I'm going to work my freaking tail off obsessively to get that external goal. And if I never stop and I keep innovating, I keep being creative, I keep trying new things, and I'm just obsessed about getting this vision to become my reality, it becomes my reality. That's the skill set of manifestation. Well, the skill set of happiness is different. The skill set of happiness says, I am happy when I absolutely love my reality today, how it is. And if there's any aspect of my reality that I don't love, that I'm resisting, that I say isn't right, I'll be dissatisfied in some way. So the skill set is learning how to love our current reality in this moment, accept it, have gratitude for it, and love it. And when we can do those three things, acceptance, gratitude, and love, we find happiness.
Okay, that's very cool. Now I'm wondering, almost assuming, that if somebody new came to you and were to say, okay, Matt, I'm really fascinated, I want to be happy, what am I looking for to find out what are the things that make my current reality happy?
So in my book, The Good Mood Revolution, I talk about the things that make us unhappy first. And
Okay.
there are 8 negative moods. So there are 8 bad moods. The good news is there's only 8, and we can learn 8 things. So once we identify the 8 negative moods, when we're feeling unhappy, meaning even null or numb or dull or just blah, that's a bad mood. If we're not feeling joyful, excited, like creative, optimistic, passionate, energetic, if we're not feeling loving and peaceful, if we're not feeling some form of a really positive mood, we're in a bad mood. And so the first half of my book talks about the 8 negative moods. And when we're feeling bad, we just need to identify which of these 8 moods am I in. And then all of them are the same. So for you, Axel, when you feel anger, it feels very similar to when I feel anger.
Okay.
Your mind is making up stories that say that you've been violated and harmed, or someone's been violated and harmed, and that it shouldn't have happened, and that someone's responsible or something's responsible. And it's not your fault, it's that thing's fault. That's the signature thought pattern of anger. Well, if anger has a signature thought pattern, the opposite, or getting out of anger, also has a step-by-step thought pattern. And so we can get out of anger by just questioning these assumptions, the assumptions that I've been harmed or someone's been harmed. I would just say, as I'm angry and I feel violated that somebody shouldn't have done something, I would say, and maybe we can use an example. Axel, you and I could both come up with one. What's a time you've been angry recently?
Well, I can give you a pretty concrete example from just this morning.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. So I have started to believe for quite some time that SEO is a thing that requires experts to do it so that you have the expected results. And I am very fortunate right now that I have some experts who are actually willing and ready to do it for our website and the podcast and so forth. But obviously, to do the thing that they're experts in, they need access to these kind of what they call back office systems like Google Analytics and Console. And they threw a whole bunch of names at me. And so this has all been a little while ago. And this morning I got a message where I basically was asked by the leader of that SEO team, how much longer is it going to take until we get all the required things, access to the required things, so we can really finally start helping you? Now, if this would have been like 3 days ago or 5 days or a week ago, I would have probably said, okay, we figured out. But it's been 6 weeks that they have been waiting. right? And so you can imagine that I was ready. It's if I wouldn't work from home office, I would have said, okay, I want that person in front of me. Or people, it's probably not just one, who
Yeah.
can figure this out, right? So that's one of those examples.
In how frustrating to be relying on somebody to do something that they said they would do, and then just 6 weeks has gone by where you're waiting for a result and you're in the dark about it, right? And they
Well,
just left you
I
waiting.
mean, it's not, if I don't want to draw it out too much into detail, but I think everybody would say, okay, if there's something like that where you ask for something, then you don't wait 6 weeks and hope it has happened. I mean, obviously we have kept asking for it over and over and over again. And I think this unhappiness or anger is based on having asked more often than I think I should have. That's basically the thing, right? And I still don't believe that it's deliberate, but it's also frustrating because you want to surround yourself with experts. And if they don't do what they claim to be experts for, so the other experts can't do their job. So, yeah, so
Well,
it's,
let's talk about the positive aspect of
yeah.
anger first. So the positive, anger is actually one of the most positive of the 8 bad moods, because anger gives us a lot of energy to make change. So it doesn't feel good to be angry at somebody, and it doesn't feel good when someone's angry at us. So it's a bad mood. I mean, we can agree when we're angry, we're not happy, right?
Totally.
However, it can be positive because we can say, enough. I've been waiting for this for 6 weeks. It's enough. This needs to happen now. And then we can now start to take action to make sure that the things are going to happen. Or we can decide, this has taken too long. I'm done working with you. I'm going to move on and work with somebody else now. And so we can make change. Anger can help us make change. However, we don't want to stay there. So this example for you, it seems like your anger isn't one that's going to fester and consume you.
No, I did exactly what you said. I mean, I'm the leader of the company, so I took action. I
Yeah.
issued some tasks and some deadlines and basically told people almost exactly what you said and invited them. This is maybe a little bit about my nature of leadership. I said, please be just honest. If you feel you can't do it or it's hard or can't figure it out or so, don't hide it and hope that it's going to go away. Just tell us, tell me, tell my assistant it's not going to happen and we find an alternate solution, but just not getting it is not acceptable. So, and then
Yeah.
for me, that was basically it. Now, obviously, it's going to resurface probably by Friday or so to see was it done or wasn't it done. But
And hopefully it is. And if it's not, then you'll take more
right,
action.
yeah, exactly.
And that's an empowered person. So actually you're an empowered person. You're not a victim. And so you're going to take positive action, and you're going to make the things happen in the world that you want to happen. Uh, well, let's still talk about now the anger, because the anger doesn't feel good. And if we stay there, it certainly doesn't feel good. So typically, when we stay in anger, we stay in a victim mindset. You and I spoke before we got onto the call today about being a victim or taking accountability for our life. When I stay in anger, it's because I feel like somebody's harmed me. It was their fault, and that I've been unfairly harmed by them. And anytime we stay in that victim mindset, whether we've been a victim or not, like let's say, just make up some more hypotheticals on this situation. Let's say you had given these people $50,000 to do your SEO, and they promised they'd have it done, and now 6 weeks has gone by and they haven't gotten it done. And then they stop responding to your emails. And then you go and you look up the company, and the website is broken. And you try to call a phone number, and the phone number is disconnected. And now you realize that they've taken your $50,000 and they're not coming back, and you can't get it back. That could be anger that now we're starting to say, hey, I'm a victim here. I lost this $50,000 and there's nothing I can do about it. And they harmed me. In this hypothetical scenario, it would be true. You would have been harmed. Somebody would have stolen from you, and you'd have every right to be angry. What I would teach now to not stay here, because if we stay in an angry state, and we could stay in an angry state over that for a week, a month, a quarter, a year, that state of just being victimized and angry, that could be a long path, or it could be a short path. We could be out within a day. I would prefer that we teach people how to get out of it within a day. So the first step is to say, okay, I'm feeling angry. That's okay. It's okay for me to feel angry. What lesson can I learn here? What is this anger trying to show me? Well, in this hypothetical scenario, we would say the anger is trying to show me that I trusted the wrong person, or that I didn't, again, taking responsibility. I gave $50,000 to somebody that I didn't fully find out they were going to execute. So what could I have done better? I could have vetted them more. I could have done some more research on who they were. I could have spoken to some of their past clients before I committed such a large sum of money. My responsibility was to make sure that it was in the right hands. And so once we start looking back at ourselves and saying, what could I have done? The anger starts to dissipate. As long as we stay in this story that I was a complete victim and they were the oppressor and I had nothing to do with it, that the longer we stay in that victim story, the longer we are angry. And then that sabotages our happiness. And it doesn't actually help us. Being angry at them, wanting revenge, hoping bad things happen to them, all of that mindset takes us away from creating wealth for ourselves, or from creating happiness for other people, from creating beautiful things in the world. The 50,000 is gone either way. Now, if I want to create a new 50,000, it's going to be dependent on how good I feel. So I have to get out of this emotion of anger. And we do that by getting out of the victim mindset.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious in this context. Let's spin this scenario a little further. So the person that lost those 50,000 realizes by self-reflection that there were some mistakes made. I mean, if somebody had come to me, for example, and I'm assuming to you as well, Matt, and said, hey, I have this offer, I would have to give them 50,000, and then they do this thing, you and I would probably both say, I'll give them maybe 10% up front, and as they perform, then you give them step by step, until they finish what they promised. But realizing that, I guess, is one thing, and that diminishes probably the initial anger. Can you describe for the audience a little bit in which way and by what indications are you transitioning from, okay, so it doesn't bug me as much anymore, I don't have this negative energy anymore, and towards more, okay, when does happiness start? So how do I know that happiness starts?
Yeah, so the happiness formula is always going to look like the first step is acceptance.
Right.
I have to fully accept my reality. I may not love it yet, but I have to fully accept it. So again, using this scenario with losing 50,000, at first we're going to resist it. We're going to say that shouldn't have happened. Those dirty scoundrels, somebody needs to teach them a lesson. The police need to get them. I need to protect everyone else from being taken. And so it's my duty to be super angry and try to get revenge. That's going to be the first thoughts. Those are all suffering thoughts. Those thoughts will perpetuate our suffering. They don't help us at all. They don't help the world. So we need to move out of the victim thoughts and then move into, okay, personal responsibility. I had some part in this. I could have paid them a smaller sum up front. I could have gotten more guarantees. I could have spoken to other people, whatever we could have done. Once we take responsibility and say, I had a part in this, then we say, I accept it. The 50,000 is gone. I don't want it to be gone, but I accept that it's gone. And I'm going to move forward from this place that this is where I am now. I was at 50,000 richer. Now I'm 50,000 poorer, but this is where I am now. I fully accept my reality. From acceptance, if we can get there, and this isn't always easy, but it's the first step. From acceptance, we have to move into gratitude. So the next move, so we had, I'm taking some responsibility, then I'm accepting that this is my reality. The next move is gratitude. We have to say, how am I grateful that this happened? What have I learned? Who have I grown into? How did this situation help me? And this is the crazy thing. Every single situation helps us. Even the ones we didn't want. There's always a gift. There's always an opportunity. There's always a lesson that enriches us in a way that we couldn't have been enriched otherwise. I think of it as God's curriculum. Every single circumstance that happens to us, whether we wanted it or not, is our curriculum, and it's what we needed to grow into the next greater version of us. Maybe this lesson of losing 50,000 was a gentle lesson. No one got cancer. You know, my children didn't die. I didn't become disabled. I just lost 50,000. It's really not, it's a gentle lesson. I can make 50,000 back. I can't grow my child back if she dies. So I could be grateful. I could say, God, thank you for giving me a gentle lesson this time. With this gentle lesson, I've learned how to take more responsibility. I've learned how to be grateful for all the things that really matter in life, because money isn't one of those things that really matters in life. I've grown more compassionate for other people who've been harmed. Maybe now I'm kind of out there talking about how to protect yourself in business more. Maybe I've opened up a whole new side of my business or a whole new speaking arm. So I'm grateful for the gifts. So that's the third step. We had responsibility, acceptance, gratitude. And then finally, from gratitude, we could say, I love that this happened.
Okay.
I love it. I'm so grateful for all those gifts. And now, because of who I've become, I wouldn't take it back.
Okay, cool. Now, two quick things that come to mind when I listen to what you just described. On that gratitude level, in your experience, how important is it that the trigger for the anger is big enough?
Is big enough?
Yeah, if I take myself, if I do something, maybe in hindsight foolish, same example, but it's not 50,000, it's $100. I can at least for myself say I'm not nearly, I mean, I haven't lost 50,000, so I shouldn't really say it that way. But if I imagine at least if I were, then it's different than losing $100. And 100, I might kind of say, okay, that was stupid, and kind of dismiss it and never really get to these other steps, right? In the sense of a gratitude level. So that's what I mean by a trigger. And then the other thing, I just want to give that to the audience, because people have often asked me, and you said you're a happiness coach and mentor. In my observation, and it is not necessary to first be angry, there is an enormous amount of happiness coming out of the opportunity to receive gratitude from other people by making them aware of things, or helping them to think through something, or helping them to ask questions in a different way, or maybe answer them in a different way, to kind of see a different path or a different way forward. So, you know, when I asked you the question about when does happiness appear, for me, many times it has appeared, and it doesn't have to have such a negative and substantial financial impact. When I can say, okay, now that I'm out there, like you said, teaching, so to speak, and I receive the gratitude from others for, quote unquote, saving them from losing 50 grand, that in and of itself, it's not the act of teaching, it's really more them showing their gratitude for basically being preserved or being educated, whatever word you want to use. But I wonder to the extent, because I think anger, if we stay with that, is, you know, from like a few seconds about a super little mistake, like a typo almost, is for me when it's sometimes, you know, like when after all these years I still can't type properly on the freaking keyboard, right? Like, so it's not really anger in the sense of losing 50,000, but it's a little tiny, you know, like micro anger or something. So That's what I
Yeah.
meant. Like, if the bigger the anger, the more you go through the 4 levels to get to the other side, I guess.
I like to practice on the small things.
Okay.
It's really easy to practice on the small things. We lose $100. It doesn't have any impact. $100 doesn't have any impact. But if we get a little annoyed, a little frustrated, a little angry at this person that took the $100, that's a really beautiful practice ground for us to move into, instead of just kind of dismissing it and saying, oh, that's not big enough to do the process of becoming happy over.
Right. Yeah.
That's the perfect example, because if I can do it on this small thing, not being annoyed at myself for making typos, accepting myself, loving myself, having gratitude for myself for all my other gifts. Maybe I'm not the best making a difference in the world, and I'm changing people's financial futures and they're telling me about it. I've got that gift. I can speak on a podcast. I can't type that. We all have different gifts. So I'm just going to accept myself, have gratitude for the gifts I do have, and love what I do rather than worry about what I don't do well. And so both of these little examples are examples for us to practice, because when it comes to a big thing, and I said 50,000 is not a big thing.
It depends on what your circumstances.
Life and death is a big thing.
Okay.
Even in our circumstances, someone who doesn't have 50,000 and is now going to have to file bankruptcy, it's still not a big thing. We still are going to have a place to live. We still have our ability to go make more money and get a new job. Our family's going to be provided for. There's going to be food on the table. It's all going to be okay. Financial issues are never the end. Life and death issues are. And so we want to practice on these money issues. I call them gentle lessons, because it's always gentle. We just, in our mind, we think it's life and death. It's not. So that when we get to life and death, we're prepared. And that's a whole nother level of acceptance and gratitude and love that hopefully we've practiced enough that we can get there. So we just talked about one of them is anger.
Right, understood. Now, I was just about to say, I don't know if it's worth it, if it's just rattling down content or stuff, but can you maybe point out of the 8, the 3 big ones that people, if they were to actually go to Amazon and get the book and figure out what those 8 are, but are there like 3 big ones? I'm assuming anger being one of them, that people would learn about.
Yeah, so the 8 are shame, guilt. Guilt is that one you were talking about with the typos.
Yeah.
It's the perfectionist.
I have to now thank God or some entity up there that I got these fat fingers, right? Like so.
Yes. Well, we all experience all 8. I experience all 8. Yeah. And we can't stop experiencing all 8 negative emotions. All we can do is, when we get into one, recognize it and then get out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it makes me smile a little bit, because I just saw an interview of Elon Musk, and he was asked, where are we going in the future with this technology stuff? And I listened to it just, after having typed something and then used the spell check and stuff extensively to fix it. And he said, we have to get away from using these stupid meat sticks to type on some kind of piece of plastic if we want to increase the speed with which we interact with systems that get more and more capable. So either language, or they were talking about Neuralink, the thing that you basically plant into your brain and you just think it, and then the other receiving end can understand what you're thinking. He said, yes, our brain is computing so fast, but these stupid meat sticks can't get it out fast.
Yeah, no, it is really fun when we think about it. Our consciousness is the most advanced, the most advanced thing in the known universe. Our consciousness is crazy, and we do communicate mind to mind.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of other topics we could dive into. Now, you said there are 8, and I interrupted you at 4. So you want to mention the other 4?
Yeah. So we shame and guilt, and then the next is a pretty destructive one. It's hopelessness, but this shows up for entrepreneurs, for me, as overwhelm.
Okay.
Like I can't get it all done. It's all on my shoulders. Everything's up to me. Nobody's here to help me. That's a destructive state.
Right.
And then there's sadness or grief, and we're all going to experience that. We just don't want to stay there. We don't want to live there. From there, fear and anxiety. That's a big one. So you were asking for the big three. For entrepreneurs, fear and anxiety is going to be one of them. I'd say there's a big four for entrepreneurs. The next is desire or lust. Anytime we're caught in this desire for more and more and more and more, kind of like I was saying, I just need to get to this point. I just need to get
has to be
more,
4 billion.
Yeah, right. If I could just get $4 billion.
Right.
No, 40 billion. If I could just have 40 billion. And then it's like, no, 400 billion. And it's never enough. Right. And so that emotion of more and more and more is one of the plaguing bad moods for entrepreneurs. And the second half of the book, I talk about how to counter these and the positive states that we can choose instead. But we're just going through the 8 negative ones. So fear and anxiety will be one of the big ones. The desire, the constant, never-ending desire for more will be another one. Anger, we discussed. And then the last one that gets all of us as we have success is pride. This thought that somehow I'm better than other people and I have to compete with other people and I have to win. We cannot actually be happy while we're in that mindset. And the more success we have, the trickier that one is. So the most successful people in the world, think about A-list athletes or movie stars or Elon Musk. It's going to be really hard for him to get out of pride because everyone tells him, you're the greatest thing that's ever been. Every person who sees him kisses up to him and wants something from him. And it's going to be hard for him to be humble and believe that he's actually no better than anyone else. But that's going to be a hallmark for feeling good. We can't be caught in that inflated, unrealistic ego that I'm better than other people and be happy at the same time. Those two things don't coexist. So those are all 8, but those are the big 4 that we're going to encounter on our entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I think one thing, since you mentioned that as an example, that I've seen where it gets to a point where, like, if I consider myself a regular person compared to somebody like that, we sometimes lose the belief or wanting to believe that what they say is what they mean, right? Like when he said, oftentimes he's being asked, why do you do what you do? And he says things like, I want to make humanity multiplanetary. I want to help humanity to have an alternative. I want to have the answer, the question to the answer, the universe, right? Those kind of things where you say, okay, well, this is somewhere up there, way out of the normal realm of things. But when you're $280 billion rich, right, and you want to still motivate yourself, I guess your visions change, right? And I think it's much more believable based on what you just explained the last half hour on how somebody even at that state can say, okay, there are things that would make me happy or keep me happy. And all that stuff that used to be the motivator is not really relevant anymore. I remember one time they were asking him, okay, if the advertisers for Twitter all go away, what do you do? And he said, well, anybody really seriously saying you want to basically trigger me with money, it's not going to happen. So I guess you can have a $40 billion hobby or something.
Yeah.
So great. I mean, Matt, I think we could talk about this stuff for a very long time, but it probably deserves more than half an hour or 40 minutes. So if people say, wow, this was interesting and I would love for somebody to help me to be happy and then be happy about my real estate investing, how can they get in touch?
I do believe that that we have to have both. We have to do that path of financial success in manifesting in the world, and that's what your show is so good at. But we also have to be working on our happiness at the same time. Otherwise, we're going to get that financial success and still be unhappy. And that's a failure to me. but we can do both at the same time. And so the best way to plug in would be to add a second podcast to your repertoire. Come over to my podcast once a week too. In addition to this one, it's called The Good Mood Revolution. And then just once a week, listen for half an hour about how to be happier. And those tips, I think, are going to be the fastest way to eventually learn the skill set.
The Good Mood Revolution. I think I should do that too.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. That's good. Thank you, Matt, for sharing that. One last thing I always ask guests, unrelated to our topic or real estate or investing, maybe two. So today I want to at least ask the one question: if you could meet anybody, who would it be and why?
I would meet Jesus.
Okay.
And I am a huge fan of his. I want to meet the embodiment of love. The end of my book, the highest states of good moods are complete love for humanity. To love, this was a guy that loved his enemies as they were torturing him. If I could be loving to the person that's taking 50,000 from me as they're taking it, that would be the pinnacle of happiness. And I think he could teach me how to do it.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for being on the Ideal Investor Show, and the Good Mood Revolution will be on my schedule going forward.
Hey, Axel, I loved it, man. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.